Hi, I'm Jami Shapiro, and welcome to Grandma Has ADHD. I'm a certified senior move manager and owner of Silver Linings Transitions, where I help people navigate life's big transitions. But here's the thing, I spent years helping families move through change while completely missing the pattern that was running through my own life. I'm the daughter of two ADHD parents, the mother of three ADHD children, and yep, I have ADHD too. For years, I didn't have the language or understanding for what that meant. But becoming an ADHD coach and specialist, that's been absolutely game changing. Not just for how I work with my clients, but for how I relate to my family and honestly, for how I understand myself. I even wrote a book about it called This Explains So Much. This podcast is for all of us who are discovering ADHD later in life. Each week, I bring you conversations with industry experts and people sharing their own ADHD journeys, real stories, real strategies, and often a little too much information. If you're loving what you're hearing, please share this podcast, leave us a review, and find me at jamishapiro.me. That's JamiShapiro.me. Whether you're over 50 and just getting diagnosed, or you're recognizing patterns you've lived with your whole life, this is your space to navigate ADHD with others who get it. So grab your coffee and get comfortable and let's dive in. The doors to the Sparkler Society are officially open, and we've made some changes based on everything we learned in our first month of testing. You guys gave us such great feedback, and we listened. Here's what's new. Instead of trying to do all the things at once, which, let's be honest, is very on brand for our ADHD brains and also kind of exhausting, we're starting where it matters most. We're going deep on overspending, impulse purchases, and the habits that quietly drain our time, energy, and money. You know the ones, the subscriptions you forgot about, the Amazon cart at midnight, the stuff that just appears in your house. We're calling it the ADHD tax, and for most of us, it's costing us hundreds of dollars a month we don't even realize we're losing. To celebrate our real launch, we're offering half-off membership. That's just $50 a month for your entire first year for the first 50 people who join. And here's the part I really love. We offer a money-back guarantee if you don't save enough to cover the cost of membership. We're that confident. You can find more information by going to jamishapiro.me. That's JamiShapiro.me. Oh, and one more thing. For everyone who keeps telling me they don't like to read, This Explains So Much is now available as an audiobook. You're welcome. You can find links to the show notes or on the Jami Shapiro website. Now let's do this. I am absolutely thrilled to welcome Dr. Cheryl Browne to the Grandma Has ADHD podcast. Cheryl is a developmental psychologist, certified ADHD coach, and someone whose story is going to resonate deeply with so many of you listening right now. Here is what I love about Cheryl's journey. She spent half a century, and yes, you heard that right, navigating what she calls brokenness and brilliance before getting her ADHD diagnosis. She actually captured her experience in a beautiful haiku, half a century of brokenness and brilliance, and now clear seeing. And that clear seeing, that's what she's brought to her coaching practice, where she helps adults, especially those of us over 40 who discovered ADHD later in life, transform our understanding of ourselves. Cheryl brings 25 years of mindfulness practice and research to her work, along with degrees from Yale and UT Austin. But what really sets her apart is how she weaves together academic rigor, contemplative wisdom, and lived experience to help her clients build lives that work with their brains, not against them. She specializes in working with creatives, entrepreneurs, professionals, and especially folks navigating both ADHD and autistic traits, what we call AuDHD. And when she's not coaching, well, let's just say her hobby list prove she's one of us. DJing, shadow puppetry, guitar,
kombucha making, joining a chorus, mastering the breaststroke, and teaching herself to hula hoop. I mean, come on. So buckle up, Grandma Has ADHD, because we're about to dive into a conversation about mindfulness, strength-based coaching, releasing those outdated self-narratives, and finding your own clear seeing. Welcome, Dr. Cheryl Browne, to the Grandma Has ADHD podcast. Wow. And kudos, by the way. I mean, all of that. And then Yale. That's quite impressive.
Thanks. I'm so happy to be here. That really made me sound like someone I partially recognize, but, kind of larger than life. So, but thank you for that.
I think that's really common, actually. It's very, very common. I usually will say after I've read someone's bio, like that reads like an ADHD bio. And, we don't just do one thing. We have multiple interests. We a lot of times go from career to career. And it's true, too. And in fact, when I was going through ADCA coaching, one of the things that I learned about people with ADHD is that we don't stop to savor what it is that we've accomplished because we're just moving on to the next thing. And that someone suggested that they go to LinkedIn to see, what they've accomplished just to recall it all.
Oh my gosh, I have totally done. Yeah, I look at that. I'm like, wow, I've done a lot.
Yeah. And I want to speak to that, actually. I don't know about you, but for me, it's two things. One, I cannot sit still. So I have to be like working towards the next thing. But then I also feel like for me, I have to have the certifications because there is that imposter syndrome. And it's almost like if I've earned that certification, then I'm really not an imposter. I would love to hear what you think about that.
About the certifications?
Or the imposter syndrome or the not staying still.
Yeah. So the not staying still, I'm actually not of the hyperactive type. So I know you don't mean literally sitting still. So I do have a lot of passions and interests, and I'd love to go from thing to thing and full of curiosity. But I also, despite what it may look like in my bio, I've had a lot of time to do all those things. So I actually live a pretty reasonable pace of life. I'm not like super productive all the time or always in a rush or one of the busy people. It helps that I don't have children. Anyway, about imposter syndrome and the certifications, I would say I've actually reached a point where I don't really care about that stuff. I don't really care about certifications. I feel like the proof is when people meet you, do you have something resonating to say or helpful, or it helps to have certifications on paper, but I just kind of figure the people who need to find you will find you, and your worth is in what you deliver.
So I'm gonna side. So I never approach it. I always ask someone's journey, but I will say that, and perhaps you did go to Yale, and I would say to most people in the US, at least, Yale definitely has a badge of prestige. And that's not something, even someone intelligent, the average intelligent, or even a little more than the average intelligent, we're not going to Yale. So you probably somewhere in there realize that maybe you are above the average intelligence level, and maybe that could also be why, that imposter syndrome doesn't hit you the same way that it might for me.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. First of all, just to say, I kind of cringe when, people, when we talk about intelligence, and particularly my own, but just that I believe that intelligence there's lots of different kinds of intelligence, and, going to Yale is one of the intelligences, or involves one of the intelligences that is most valued in our society, but it is, not the only important kind of intelligence.
I agree.
But it's true that I have gained a lot of confidence from, doing a lot of hard things, figuring a lot of stuff out, getting great education, great opportunities, great feedback from people. being treated with respect, all that kind of accumulates with, I guess, a kind of confidence. It's almost like the privilege of confidence that allows me or someone in my position to escape. Sorry, losing words here.
Yeah, I like it. Like I said, we keep it real. I think to escape that imposter syndrome, like
yeah. Like,
yeah.
I always feel like I belong. I can do it. I can figure it out.
Nice. Okay, so let's go back to how I normally start my podcasts, and that is love to hear your ADHD journey and how you got to where you are now, especially because I think it's really helpful when people can hear themselves in someone else's stories. Oh, I did that. And I do also just want to point out, and I'm sure you've heard this before, like, oh, you can't have ADHD. You went to Yale. Right? Like you can't be right. You can't be smart and also have ADHD, which I think the two run together very frequently. So anyway, I just wanted to highlight that too.
Yeah. A lot of my friends from college also are neurodivergent, and we stuck together and exacerbated our bad study habits by staying up till 4 a.m, before we'd start our paper, that kind of thing. We didn't even realize it was not normal until way later. Mm-hmm. But so I was never diagnosed as a kid for lots of reasons, the familiar reasons. I'm a girl. I wasn't hyperactive. I did extremely well in school. Even if I was never paying attention in class, I could always find, workarounds. I also, I was just in circumstances that really helped my executive function. So, I happened to be interested in learning and interested in the stuff that we were learning in school most of the time. So, it was all the things were working okay on paper, or more than okay. So no one really worried about it. But, and this persisted all the way through grad school. I had a lot of autonomy, learning all the time, all the stuff that, comes sort of easily to me because, that's my jam. And as we know, when we're doing something we're interested in, we have a lot of autonomy. That's when our brains really work for us. But looking back, I was definitely an ADHD. I was so in my head all the time, looking at videos of when I was 3, my sisters, let me entertain you, looking at the camera. And I'm like off looking at the trees. And they're like, Cheryl, what? And then like in chemistry class in 8th grade, I was just never paying attention, never knew what was going on, talking in class. And then after our first test, the teacher comes in goes, Cheryl Browne, you're a paradox, because I'd gotten 100 on the test. And, it was just like I crammed the night before beating the textbook. And I really, so it was sort of like that. Like I got a lot of forgiveness because in the end I followed through. So,
and did you need that last minute deadline to motivate you to study?
Always. Okay. I prepared for this podcast in the last few hours, like today, basically, because I knew that's what I would be most inspired. Mm-hmm. That continues. So anyway, I always knew that I had some interpersonal and emotional regulation issues and mood and all kinds of, I knew I was probably, maybe on the spectrum. I'm still not sure about that. I have some traits, but I never really thought about ADHD until later when it was sort of the perfect storm. I was late 30s in a boring job that I had very little autonomy. I thought it was sort of not the best way to do things. And yet I was forced to, do things the way they said. It was sort of, all the things that make our brains grind to a halt and make things painful. So I was really having trouble at work, and I was diagnosed not officially through a neurological assessment, but through my therapist, basically. But it was just obvious. Like I was like off the charts inattentive wise. And also I was entering perimenopause. Late 30s is actually the point at which there's the most difference between ADHD and non-ADHD people in terms of, the major symptoms. It makes total sense to me. That's when it all happened. Once I was diagnosed, I got some ADHD coaching, which helped, but it was still just a terrible job for me, terrible fit. So I ended up losing that job, which, was a blessing. And that really changed everything. I saw a career coach. I was like, oh, I want to find my passion. And the career coach ended up hiring me to do research on his coaching and his negotiation training, which he does. So I had sort of a part-time, consulting gig doing that. And then I just started getting more research consulting work and some property management stuff and just really dog care, some professional music performance, violin and voice, even a little local professional dancing. It was just like, Renaissance woman lifestyle. But this whole time I was like, oh, what is my path? What is my passion? I got to find it. And then at some point I was like, wait, I can just do this. I'm paying the bills. I'm having a great time. I'm constantly learning. I don't have to choose, actually. So that's it. My path is circuitous and non-Euclidean and belongs in Alice in Wonderland, but it works for me.
Nice. So yeah. I want to visit the autism spectrum conversation with you, because one of the reasons I was so excited to have you is that I am hearing a lot more about AuDHD, and that's especially women, because, we used to have this perception, just like the hyperactive little boy represented ADHD, Rain Man represented autism. And, right. That isn't autism. And, I'm meeting more and more people who are, what I'm finding is they're diagnosed with ADHD and then they're getting the autism diagnosis. And I know you can have autism, you can have ADHD, you can have AuDHD, which is a combination of two, and which one is more dominant. So because you coach in that arena, I would love to, because I have not brought this topic to our audience. And I suspect there are probably people who've listened that are like, oh, the ADHD, and then maybe the autism as well. So I would love to hear a little more, because I don't really even know a lot about that.
Sure. Well, there's not a lot known about it, but there's just starting to be some research. One thing that's very clear is that there's a lot of genetic overlap between ADHD and autism. And in fact, I didn't know of any ADHD in my family until my sister started having kids. And she has 2 sons with ADHD. Mm-hmm. But I have a lot of autism in my family. Some late diagnosed, some, diagnosed as toddlers. So that is not surprising at all. And I see traits in myself, especially when I was younger, the, social intelligence, the interpersonal stuff. I feel like I'm a really late bloomer, in my 40s, learning basic, truths about human interaction that many people learn when they're kids, and I really have to try through feedback and reading and trial and error. But just be clear, I have not been diagnosed with autism, but definitely have traits of it. Anyway, back to.
No. So what was somebody listening? How could they identify, maybe this isn't just ADHD, maybe it's autism and ADHD. What would be things that they could identify or notice?
It's tough because there are also overlapping symptoms. I would say maybe more of an extent, like social cognition, for example, like the ability to kind of understand other people's minds and emotions and facial expressions, understand subtle cues of other people, that sort of thing. There are some deficits in some subsets of people with ADHD, but that's much more typical of people with autism. So, it is very hard to distinguish because it's sort of part of both. But, I would say if those things are really impacting your life, there you might want to look into whether autism is part of the situation. Also, sensitivity to stimuli. Again, it happens with ADHD, but much more so with autism. So loud noises, bright lights, certain textures can be very annoying, or, even cause people to shut down or have extreme emotional reactions. That's kind of one of the hallmarks of autism, but again, can be seen to some extent in ADHD. Yeah, I mean, it's really hard. It's a constellation of traits that overlap to some extent with ADHD. So I don't think there's any way you can say like, with that. But if you have those kinds of traits, the interpersonal, the stimuli, and it's impacting your life, and you have ADHD, I would maybe pursue, seeing someone who could give you more clarity on whether the autism spectrum is part of the picture.
So I have a question. Again, I really don't know a lot about autism, but I have heard that a lot of people with ADHD have this spark and they tend to draw people in socially. And the way that you're describing it is that, and I know I interrupt people and I have other issues with socializing, but it's not because I can't read how people are feeling.
Right.
It's because I can't keep my mouth shut to let them finish what they're talking about. And that can be off-putting to somebody who doesn't understand that. And so for autism, you say that there might be a harder time, with that. Do you also see people with autism maybe not having that same, I'm just generalizing, that same spark? Do you know what I mean?
You mean the motivation to like impulsively interrupt because you're so excited?
Yeah, or this just like this. I see a lot of people with ADHD, and I think of like a magnetism. Like they just like they light up a room. And again, that could be my overgeneralization. I'm just
right. I think that's very personal. I mean, I adore people with both ADHD and autistic traits. I love the directness, the guilelessness, the refusal to do things everyone else's way. So to me, they light up a room. But of course, it's a huge spectrum. So, from nonverbal but we're talking about high functioning,
right?
People who may not know they have autism at an older age. I think that they can certainly have a spark too, especially if they also have ADHD. In my experience, it's the sort of just unapologetic directness, and I'm interested in this thing and I'm going to tell you all about it. And yeah, that's very charming too. It's just like how animated people get about what they're excited about. I find it very charming. Mm-hmm. And I'm interested because I love learning and they love talking about they've learned.
It's funny because I know my hyperfocus happens to be ADHD.
Right.
And so my family or my friends will be like, oh, she's going back to ADHD, but I have an awareness of it. And then I can pull back and be like, okay, I know I've got to pull back from this. I actually was in a call and I can't label anybody. I'm going to just say that. But to me, it seemed pretty obvious that this person had autism because he would just like not stop talking about whatever the subject was and could not identify that none of us were following. And we were like,
right.
having to redirect and say, I want to move away from this. And he just kept going back to it. And I was like, and I just seeing it so clearly, it was like, wow, So to me, that might have been a distinction. But like I said, I'm starting to realize that there's autism in my family as well. And again, knew ADHD, could identify that very clearly. Once I understood, what ADHD looked like. Because again, I didn't realize I had it till I was 45 years old. So because I'm not the hyperactive little boy. And I do have hyperactive presentation and an attentive presentation, but I wasn't the little boy in class that was disrupting,
Yeah.
by my body moving. I might've been doodling all the time, or moving my foot, or twirling my hair, or chewing on my hair, or talking a lot. Jami can't stop talking, but I wasn't getting sent to the principal's office. So it wasn't identified.
Right.
So yeah, like I said, I'm just trying to bring this conversation to other people, because just like ADHD is, roughly 6% of the population and 80% don't know they have it. I think what is do you know the percentages that they believe the population has, autism? Not exclusive. I just mean autism and.
Oh, I don't. Sorry.
No,
I don't want to, I have numbers in my mind, but I don't want to say anything wrong. But I mean, it's small, but well, it's a small percent that have both, but it's a disproportionate percent among, let's say, if you have ADHD, you're more likely to have autism than if you don't have ADHD.
Got it. So they're more likely to co-occur.
That actually doesn't exactly mean that, but
oh, okay.
I mean, you're not more likely to have both than one. I mean, that's by definition true. But if you have ADHD, it's more likely that you have autism than if you know nothing else about you. Does that make sense?
No, it doesn't mean anything. It just means I can't bridge it. I'm like trying to visualize it and can't bridge it. But okay, I'm going to take a pause, because one of the things that I like to do is to, first of all, encourage our listeners to, if they're enjoying this podcast, to share it and subscribe to it and like it. So that's one of the things that I really want to do, is destigmatize ADHD and any brain not disorder, I hate that word, but brain wiring difference, neurotypical versus neurodivergent. And I think the best way that we can destigmatize it is to understand it. So, I like that more and more people are listening every time we release an episode. So I'm inviting the audience to please like it and share it. This is my opportunity to say that. And then if you would stick around and listen to the commercials, so to speak, this podcast is something that I do as a labor of love, because it is my hyper focus, and I'm just been fascinated by everything that I'm learning. But I also need to keep the lights on, and my paycheck is my company, Silver Linings Transitions, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And we do home organizing and move management, and we're part of a national association, actually, that a lot of people don't even know exists. But have you ever moved before, Cheryl?
Oh, many. I've lived in 6 places in the town I live in now.
Do you like moving? Do you think that's fun to pack and unpack?
I wouldn't say it's fun, but I think it's a great opportunity to get rid of the stuff that you don't need and to reorganize the stuff that you have.
Right. Well, most people don't like moving. They would rather save their vacation days for vacation than packing and unpacking boxes. And so that is what we do as senior and specialty move managers. So you're going to hear a little bit about that, but know that if you're not in the San Diego or Coachella Valley area, but you want to have a move that's easy, you can find out more also about our national organization. Actually, it's more than national, because we're also in Canada and other countries. But okay, so we're going to take a pause, and then we're going to come back with Dr. Cheryl Browne. I used to dread visiting my mother. Because of the clutter, the piles, the chaos, we all experience clutter differently. For me, it was a source of anxiety and stress. I'd try to help, and she'd get defensive. We were both frustrated, and it was destroying our relationship. Then we discovered something that changed everything. My mother had ADHD, and she'd been living with it undiagnosed for over 76 years. Suddenly, it all made sense. The clutter wasn't laziness. The disorganization wasn't a choice. Her brain was wired differently, and no amount of willpower or traditional organizing advice was ever going to work. That discovery became my life's work. It's why I started the Grandma Has ADHD podcast. It's why I became an ADHD coach and specialist. And it's why I am so passionate about helping women like my mother and maybe like you. Because here's what I know. Clutter affects us emotionally and physically. It damages relationships, it creates shame spirals, and the overwhelm of not knowing where to start keeps you frozen. But it's okay to ask for help. In fact, it's brave. If you're in the San Diego or Coachella Valley area, my team at Silver Linings Transitions can come to your home. We'll help you tackle the clutter with compassion, not judgment. I also work with women virtually through one-on-one ADHD coaching. And if you are overwhelmed with clutter, I can connect you with trusted resources in your area. Visit jamishapiro.me to get started or grab my book, This Explains So Much, on Amazon. My mother and I got our relationship back. You can get your peace back too. That's JAMISHAPIRO.me. Moving can feel overwhelming, whether you're downsizing, relocating, or helping a loved one transition. There are so many decisions to make, details to handle, and emotions to navigate. At Silver Linings Transitions, we believe every move should be magical, not stressful. We're more than movers. We expertly guide you through the entire process and do our best to alleviate your concerns. From the moment we meet, you'll feel comfortable because we will listen to your needs and wants and work together to create a personalized plan that honors your memories and your cherished belongings while helping you embrace your next chapter. We visit your new space and create a detailed floor plan, ensuring your furniture and treasured belongings will fit safely. We handle the logistics so you don't need to worry about anything, from sorting and packing to coordinating the sale and donation of unwanted items. Our professional team uses efficient, eco-friendly bins and handles every detail with care. We coordinate with our vetted moving partners, oversee the logistics, and ensure nothing is left behind, even packing your refrigerator items. Here's where the magic happens. We don't just unpack. We recreate the feeling of home. Using photos from your previous space, we thoughtfully arrange your furniture, hang your pictures, and set up your kitchen and bathroom so everything feels familiar from day one. When you walk into your new space, it's not just moved in, it's home. Your coffee pot is ready, your favorite photos are perfectly placed, your bed is made, and your new chapter begins with comfort and joy instead of chaos. This is how Silver Linings Transitions makes moves magical. We handle the emotional lifting and the logistics so you can focus on what matters most, settling into your new home. Because every move deserves a silver lining. Hi, I'm Jami Shapiro. I am an ADHD coach and the founder of Silver Linings Transitions, where we do home organizing and move management. And, you know, I did not know that I had ADHD for years. And I remember personally hiring an organizing company to come in and help me because I could just never get it together. And it really wasn't until I understood ADHD and its impact that I realized why. And so I wrote a book, This Explains So Much, Understanding Undiagnosed ADHD, because I just feel like there's so many answers that people don't even know that they're looking for, especially generations of women who grew up thinking that ADHD was just for the hyperactive little boy. It turns out it's not only a body that can be hyperactive, but it can be a mind that's hyperactive. So you can have a wonderful day and you can have something wonderful happen, and then that one negative thing that happens is going to be the thing that takes you into that spiral, and it's going to be keeping you up at night, and you're going to be ruminating on it. And I think that, you know, we as women carry so much shame and so much how it's supposed to be. I'm supposed to have it together.
together. And I remember that was the case for me. I remember, how is it that all of these women have so much consistency and their kids get the sticker charts and everything seems to run well, and I'm the one that's missing parent-teacher conferences, and my house, is always in chaos. And then again, that negative self-talk. So my mission is really to educate people who have no idea that ADHD has the impact that it does. And it's to connect you to other people who get it and who will make you feel that you aren't alone, you're not crazy, you're not lazy, you're not stupid, you're not too much. You just have a brain that was wired differently. And I can't wait for you to join me in the community that I'm building, the workshops that I'm creating, the book club that I'm hosting, because I know that I am going to make a profound difference in your life.
And we are back with Dr. Cheryl Browne. So I did not ask you this at the cliffhanger, but I do usually like to ask my guests, and you may know the question that's coming, the button question. I didn't say, do I call you Cheryl, Dr. Browne, Dr. Cheryl Browne?
Cheryl's good.
Okay, Cheryl, thank you. I wanted to know if you could press a button and not have ADHD, it goes away, you never had it, would you press the button?
Absolutely not.
Okay, why?
It's honestly been, well, first of all, I'm happy with my life and I'm happy with who I am. And you never know what's going to change what. So I don't know where I'd be if I were a different person,
Right.
And I honestly, I feel like I have had a lot of challenges related to ADHD, but at this point, it's led me to a good place. And at this point, I feel like I've learned to manage a lot of the challenges, and the way it shows up is mostly the good stuff.
Nice.
So
So what would you say is your best ADHD hack for managing the challenges?
So I would say automation. So like, I don't rely on my memory for anything. Terrible memory.
Mm-hmm.
So I make use of, I religiously put everything in my calendar. That's the one thing I have to I cannot miss that. I can't ever say I'll do it later, or I just take out my calendar and I put it in. So I put in events, I put in reminders, I put in tasks, everything. And then I set up alarms and reminders and automatic billing, like basically do a lot of front work to make sure that I don't have to rely on my memory. So that makes things pretty smooth. And practicing meditation, it doesn't sound like an ADHD hack, but it really helps in so many ways. But I would say on a day-to-day level, it kind of sharpens my mind. It triggers like a calm alertness. So whenever I have like restless energies or foggy, like slow energy, it kind of like resets it to this calm alertness, fosters self-compassion. So it kind of helps prevent me from beating myself up during the day, because meditation isn't just about noticing and calming down. It's a non-judgmental, affectionate awareness, and it helps with mood regulation. So, and then over years, there are benefits that help on an even deeper level. So I would say those are my two ADHD tools that are most helpful for me.
Okay, so what would you say to someone like me who knows they should meditate, but the idea of sitting quietly in silence freaks them out? What advice would you give?
Well, if you haven't tried it, I would advise trying it there's some great apps out there, 10% Happier, Calm, Headspace. And there are short guided, you can choose even 5-minute ones. You can choose whether there's music or silence. That's a great way to start. But if you really if you tried it, you've really given it a chance and it's just not for you, you can do walking meditation. So just kind of walking back and forth in a room or on a path outside, and just noticing the sounds and your feet on the ground and how you feel. And if you don't like that either, just mindfulness in everyday life is really important. So remembering to pause and being in the habit or developing the habit of pausing and noticing what's going on around you. And even more importantly, what's going on in you. How do you feel? What is what's going on? Do you feel, is it pleasant? Is it unpleasant? Are you doing something that feels, if you're like doom scrolling or whatever, and you suddenly kind of come to and realize like, oh, I'm doom scrolling, then ask yourself, like, how does this actually feel? Before you beat yourself up or stop or just keep going or whatever, just notice, like, how does it feel in my body right now? How does my mind feel? And then we learn from that.
Okay.
So mindfulness is not just sitting on a cushion. It's pausing to stop and be aware intentionally and learning from what we notice.
Thank you. That was super helpful. Okay, so I want to ask you one more question. You've said that later midlife can bring improvements in quality of life for adults with ADHD, even if some symptoms get harder. What did you mean by that?
So this is based on some research on older adults with ADHD, research on older adults in general, and my own experience. I've been in several mindfulness-based classes on aging. I'm in one right now. And also I'm in relevant Reddit communities. So this is sort of a mishmash of sources, but I'll try to summarize what I mean. So research on older adults with ADHD, there's a recent study comparing older adults to younger adults, both with ADHD. And surprisingly, some executive skills were actually better in the older adults. Impulse control, mental flexibility, and resisting immediate awards. So, we know about delay aversion. It's very hard for us to wait for something that's rewarding. Well, that gets better with age. And we apparently find ways to, adapt, and resilience improves just with learning through experience. Also, the study showed that older people with ADHD had better psychological health, which is similar to just aging research in general, that people tend to be just happier as they get older, better emotional regulation, better mood, and overall happiness, which is kind of the opposite of what the messages we get, I think, in media and society. So other research looking at just quality of life in older people with ADHD, it's somewhat related to symptoms, but not totally. So people who just subjectively judged their symptoms to be worse tended to have a lower quality of life. But if you look at like symptoms as measured neurologically, like on tests, that association disappeared. So it's really how people, it seems like a mindset makes a big difference.
Well, anywhere, right? Anywhere. Mindsets, attitudes so important. I actually wanted to mention to you that I also learned that we tend to be the happiest in our late 60s. It's what I've also learned in my studying as a certified senior advisor. But I also want to say, on a personal note, I just entered menopause, meaning that I just went through a year without my period. And my mood has stabilized because a lot of—
Oh my gosh, me too.
Yeah. Women with ADHD tend to have PMDD. So I know, and I didn't know this when but I didn't even know that I had ADHD, but my moods were so, like, I would be literally fighting tears behind my eyes. Like, I did not feel like myself. I would blow up at everybody. And then I started, oh, here comes my period. Like, it was almost like, and I have not, I have been even. And that has been, so, that could also be attributable. Like, I'm not dealing with the hormonal waves that was the worst.
Exactly. Yeah. I actually have bipolar as well, which is also, correlated with ADHD. And that has gotten a lot more manageable. And yeah, I'm a lot happier than I ever was before.
Mhm.
So I want to tell you a little bit about this aging class that I'm in. It's mindfulness based. And in the beginning, we had this exercise where everyone put in the chat challenges and joys of aging. And I kind of did a little non-scientific study. I recorded both, but I'm just going to talk about the joys now. So the things that people mention the most often: self-acceptance, acceptance in general. So releasing regrets and focusing more on meeting external setbacks with equanimity, adaptability, wisdom, contentment, and gratitude. And this gratitude seems to be not just for the big things, but like really noticing the little joys in life. You know, as you slow down, because you have to slow down when your body slows down, and maybe you have more time in your life to notice these things. These things that people are grateful for, they're so small and so beautiful. Is it okay if I just read some from today?
Sure.
It's just like a random thing literally from today. Okay. So one woman in Dallas said, grateful for yesterday's blue skies and warm breezes, fun chat with the pharmacist this morning at a local store, and a warm shower to wash off all the dirt and mud from Sunday's flooding. So I just love that. Like just a little incidental chat. And, even though she got all dirty from a flood, she's like, oh, but I'm grateful that I could wash it off with clean water, And then Bob, who has Alzheimer's, his gratitudes for the day are silence, the Sunday paper. Well, today's not Sunday, but I guess it was yesterday's paper. Sunlight slanting in across the table, my wife's boundless kindness and patience, this morning's moment of pleasure on a walk at a perfect view of the bay between two houses. And I love this next one. I think it's very telling. For the portion of calm I have made with my incapacities.
That's beautiful. Wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That is definitely, facing a hardship and still being able to find the beauty in life. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
It's easy, right?
Yeah. It's just a conversation. That's what I kept telling myself. Like, it's just a conversation.
It's just, I do have people who who delay. They don't want to come on. I'm like, I promise you, it is just a conversation. And, there are going to be dogs barking. My stepdaughter is off school today. I wasn't thinking about that when I scheduled that it was going to be President's Day. And so there's all this rolling around on the ceiling above me. And I'm like, yeah, such is life, and I'm just, and actually I took a quote from Dr. Eliza Barash that I loved. And that was, don't do life on hard mode.
Oh yeah. I love that.
And so, you know what? It is what it is. And I'm going to just remove any obstacle that I need to just make this as easy as possible. So
I love that. Yeah. I love the simplicity.
Yep. Yeah. So anyway, I very much appreciate your time and your willingness to have a conversation with me that I haven't had. And I know I put you on the spot quite a bit, but I'm naturally curious myself, which is one of those other amazing traits of ADHD, is that curiosity.
Yeah.
So anyway, for all of you who listened today, I hope that you learned something, but most importantly, I hope you took away that it really is never too late to make the rest of your life the best of your life. Thank you so much for listening.
Thanks.
The opinions expressed on Grandma Has ADHD podcast are those of our guests and hosts and are intended for informational and entertainment purposes only. This podcast does not provide medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The content discussed in this episode is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician, mental health professional, or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or mental health concern. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard on this podcast. If you think you may have a medical emergency, call your doctor or emergency services immediately. The host, guests, and producers of Grandma Has ADHD do not assume any liability for the content of this podcast.
Listen at your own discretion.